Good morning and welcome to IG's early morning call on Monday, the 5th of February. Coming up on today's programme. Well, the US dollar is at an 8-week high. It's after the Federal Reserve rate cut hopes dwindled after the latest NFP data and comments from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. In equity markets, meanwhile, it's a hesitant start to the week in Europe as investors gear up for a series of earnings reports. And in US earnings, McDonald's and Caterpillar are due today. Ford, Walt Disney and Uber are also set to update investors. Well, let's start by taking a quick look at volatility this morning to see how the VIX is doing. Well, it's currently up higher on the day, up 0.99%. And that's as US stocks had a varied reaction to the Federal Reserve statement and actions last week, which often influenced the VIX as well. And with 30 minutes to go until European markets open, let's have a look how the pre-market is looking across Europe. Well, the FTSE is set for a higher open, up 0.13% as well. We've got France's CAC 40 currently flat, well down 0.01%, and then Germany's DAX also set for a marginally higher open, up 0.08%. Well, on Friday the markets closed mixed, very much a picture not so dissimilar, with the FTSE down, dragged in part by oil and gas and majors slipping on lower oil prices. Well, the CAC and DAX are in the green, but Germany's DAX 40, well, that marked a notable performance though on Friday. It recorded a new high during the session, closing up 0.35%. Now, this week, analysts will be watching results from BP, Unilever and AstraZeneca, among other bits of economic data due out this week. Well, let's have a look at how things are looking overnight in Asia-Pacific markets. And this was the picture. The Nikkei 225 up 0.54%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng down marginally there, 0.01%. And Australia's S&P ASX 200 lower 0.96% in the red. Well, the People's Bank of China decision announced a couple of weeks ago to cut the reserve nation requirements for banks by 50 basis points came into effect today, but failed to lift the market. And in Australia, markets are awaiting an interest rate decision from the Reserve Bank of Australia on Tuesday. And then let's have a look and see how things were on Wall Street on Friday at the close. Well, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.35%. The S&P 500 also higher, up 1.07%. And the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite, you can see they're up 1.74% as well on Friday. And that's after a momentous week last week that boosted investor sentiment. There was also strong reports from Meta, Amazon and Apple. If we just pull up the Meta price chart, well, Meta share price has gained about 21% since Thursday after its earnings report was released. But it's added approximately $196 billion to its market capitalization. Well, the company's performance exceeded analyst expectations, and it also announced its first ever dividend. Well, Friday's highlight was also the jobs report, which beat Wall Street expectations, and we'll have more on that in just a moment. But let's have a look at how things are looking US early trade to see how things are looking. Here we've got the US 500 set for a marginally higher open, as well as the Nasdaq 2 up 0.14%. Wall Street Dow Jones also just flat there as well, but slightly higher, 0.02% at the moment. Well, this week, analysts will be keeping across earnings from McDonald, Ford and Disney, among others. US ISM Services PMI January also due this afternoon, and jobless claims on Thursday. But first of all, let's talk about the dollar, because it's at an 8-week high. And that's as the market has been reassessing what the Federal Reserve is likely to do, and whether it's likely to cut interest rates. Well, it all started with Jerome Powell's press conference on Wednesday evening, when he said that it would not be appropriate to cut rates until there was greater confidence that inflation is moving to 2%. After the Fed press conference, the target rate probability of a rate cut in March has fallen to 35.5%. Well, the probability fell further after Friday's job report. A quick reminder, the US economy created 333,000 jobs in January. Expectations were for 180,000 job creations. The unemployment rate, meanwhile, remained at 3.7%. Expectations were for it to rise to 3.8%, and average hourly earnings rose as well, more than anticipated, by 0.6% month over month and 4.5% year over year. Well, a Jerome Powell interview with CBS News show 60 Minutes, aired on Sunday night, shut the door as well on a rate cut even more, where he said it was unlikely that the Fed will have the confidence to cut rates at the next Fed meeting. Well, the CME Toolwatch is now pricing a 17.5% chance of a March rate cut. The odds for a cut in May have lengthened to 58.5%. Now, if we have a quick look at the euro-US dollar price chart this morning, well, it's currently flat there, down 0.09% at the moment. And the demand for the pair, the US dollar, has prevailed the last few days, but the euro-US dollar ended a third consecutive week with losses. The pair, as you can see, currently lower, euro being impacted by macro woes as well. And if we have a quick look at the US dollar Japanese yen price chart, well, that is up just marginally there. You can see 0.01%. The yen has recovered a bit after the Bank of Japan's hawkish tilt, saying that conditions for phasing out huge stimulus and pulling short-term rates out of negative territory are falling into place for the US dollar. Analysts say growing acceptance, of course, that the Fed will keep rates higher for longer remains supportive of a further rise in the US Treasury bond yields and could act as a tailwind for the dollar. And if we have a quick look at the price of gold as well this morning, well, unsurprisingly, that is down 0.51%, currently still above the $2,000 level. On reduced bets, down on reduced bets for aggressive Fed easing as well, lifts the US dollar in turn is seen as a key factor undermining the yellow metal. So there we go. Let's move on now to Australia, because in Australia, trade surplus narrowed in December to 10.95 billion Australian dollars, broadly in line with expectations. Imports, meanwhile, rebounded 4.8% month over month after a sharp slide the previous month of 8.4%. Exports also rose 1.8%. And then in China, well, China's services activity expanded at a slightly slower pace in January. The Caixin S&P Global Services Purchasing Managers Index edged down to 52.7 from 52.9 in December, remaining in expansion territory for the 13th consecutive month. But this won't hide the fact that China's economy is struggling to regain momentum. And then in Germany, well, trade balance, well, that widened to 22.2 billion euros in December as imports fell more than exports. Imports fell by 6.7%, while exports shrank by 4.5% on a monthly basis. And then over in the US, the market awaits the ISM Services PMI for January, expected to rise to 52. In December, the index had fallen to a 7-month low. And as well, for statistics, there's more to come this week. Tomorrow we have the RBA interest rate decision and UK BRC retail sales monitor. Then on Wednesday, we have the UK Halifax house price index. And on Thursday, China consumer price index data due out too. Well, in corporate news, Vodafone has reiterated its full year adjusted EBITDA of about 13.3 billion euros, and that's after posting a Q3 revenue marginally below analysts' expectations. Group revenue came in at 11.37 billion euros compared to 11.64, and that was what was expected. Meanwhile, in UK earnings as well this week, on Tuesday we have BP, Wednesday we have Barratt Developments, and on Thursday we have AstraZeneca and Unilever as well, full year earnings. And then as well we've we've also got McDonald's due to report at lunchtime. Well, the street expects the fast food giant to post earnings of $2.83 per share, up about 9% year over year. Revenue is forecast to rise at the same pace to $6.44 billion. So far, McDonald's has managed to keep inflationary pressure under control, maintaining stable margins through menu price increases and technology initiatives. Well, investors will also be looking for an update on McDonald's business in China, its third largest market globally. Restoring China operations is a crucial point in the company's strategy. In 2023, McDonald's planned to expand its global franchise with 400 openings in the US and 1,500 globally, including 900 in China. Well, also, Caterpillar is expected to report an improvement in both earnings and sales in the fourth quarter. The street anticipates earnings of $4.75 per share on revenue of $17.9 billion. A year ago, EPS came in at $3.86 and revenue reached $16.6 billion. Inflationary pressures, though, have been putting Caterpillar's top and bottom line to the test. Customers have been putting reins on spending as well. But thanks to a solid backlog of over $28 billion at the end of the third quarter, revenue growth should have been preserved in Q4. Well, Caterpillar also had to deal with higher material costs and rising freight services too, which have weighed on margins in previous quarters. Well, if we have a look at Caterpillar's price chart as well here, and it trades an all-time high. It recorded another strong week last week. The All Sessions stock on the IG platform is currently up 2.18% at about 317. And then there's more earnings from the US as well this week. On Tuesday, we hear from Snap, Ford Motor, Eli Lilly, and Omnicom. And then on Wednesday, we have Walt Disney, Uber Technologies, and PayPal. Thursday, we have Philip Morris and Kenvue too. So a lot to keep across. And we've also got PepsiCo on Friday. Meanwhile, let's have a quick look at commodities before we go and see what the price of oil is doing this morning. Okay, well, this is Brent crude, currently up 0.24% on the day, trading around $77 a barrel. We just move over to US crude, WTI. That's also high on the day, up 0.18%, trading around $72 a barrel. So after falling last week, and oil prices, though, could be lifted by OPEC signal that it will stick with oil supply cutbacks this quarter. And then also to note, last Friday, the Baker Hughes's total rig count fell by 2 to 619. The number of active oil rigs, meanwhile, remained at 499. Well, that's all we've got time for this morning on Early Morning Call. Thank you very much for watching, and do keep across all our IG platforms for market insights and updates throughout the day.